Hello, everybody. My name is Paul Trundle. I'm the Deputy Head of the Department of Computer Science at the University of Bradford, and it is my great pleasure to speak to you today about our department, our courses, and the amazing opportunities that are open to you at the University of Bradford. So I'd like to begin by talking a little bit about, I guess, why you should study computer science. That's why I'm here after all. So a few years ago, I tried to capture the ideas of what computer science means to me, maybe to you, to society and to the world. And what I came up with after long, hard thought was this idea that computer science is quite simply the future. It can benefit all of us. It can benefit almost everybody all around the world. And it can be applied in amazing and, at the moment, perhaps even unbelievable ways to almost any industry, almost anywhere on the planet. Computer science can make people's lives better. It can make things faster, more reliable, more fun, more entertaining. And I'm sure many of you out there have seen many fascinating ways that computational technology has benefited you, particularly perhaps in the recent past. Computer science is, one aspect of it anyway, is about growth. Growth, as we can see here, of population. Okay, the number of people on the planet is growing pretty fast, almost scarily fast, in my opinion. But the number of devices, the number of smartphones, of laptops, of smart cars with always-on technology, smart fridges and mirrors, which are real things that I haven't just made up. I absolutely promise you, go and look for them for yourselves. This gives us all, or gives computer scientists rather, an amazing way to reach people in ways that perhaps you couldn't do 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. So the number of devices, the number of pieces of hardware that you or I in the future could write software for is growing enormously. And it's estimated last year anyway, around about 6.5 connected devices per person on the planet. That's, in my opinion anyway, an interesting figure and one that really makes you think about what you can do with this subject. Growth covers lots and lots of ideas in computer science, but one of the main ones and the most obvious ones is around storage. So back in 1950, long time ago, 71 years ago, Alan Turing, the father of AI, he wrote a famous quote. He estimated that by the year 2000, there would be computers that could store around about 10 to the power of 9 bits of information, so ones or zeros, and that's roughly 128 megabytes of information. It's not a lot in this day and age. He didn't do too badly, to be fair, to say that he was predicting something 50 years into his own future. But just 5 years after his estimate, not only could we store that amount of information on any device we like, but we could store it in something as tiny as a fingertip, which many of you watching this perhaps will take for granted, and I don't blame you for that. There's many things I take for granted as well that I grew up with, but it is quite astonishing really when you really think about it. You fast forward just more or less a decade, and our storage capability has gone up by an order of magnitude. So rather than measuring things in megabytes, we measure them in gigabytes. And today, we're on the cusp of starting to measure things every day in terms of terabytes. So right now you can buy for a pretty reasonable price a small piece of plastic and silicon that can store a terabyte of information. You put it in your phone and record 4K video and send it to your friends. Or you could collect up 175, more or less, of these small memory cards, and you could store every single book ever written in the history of humanity on 175 of these. You could fit all of art and literature and recorded human history, fiction, non-fiction, on little pieces of plastic that you could then pour into a coffee cup and carry around with you. And I still sometimes find that absolutely astonishing and amazing, and it makes me think where we're going to go in the future. And that's what computer science is about, being part of that, shaping it, driving it, and imagining what you could do with these fascinating pieces of hardware. Now, there are other ways that computer science is driven by growth and drives growth itself. One of the main areas, and one that I'm sure many of you have at least heard of and maybe even are interested in, is in the area of cybersecurity. So there's enormous growth in terms of threats out there. There's enormous growth in terms of companies that need cybersecurity experts, maybe you in the future, to secure their data and their hardware and their network infrastructure, to make sure they don't get enormous fines for leaking people's personal data, and also to keep us all safe, our private information, which is increasingly hard as many of us live more and more of our lives in a connected online way. Now, other ways that computer science is about growth, and one that maybe some of you will engage with a lot more than some of those other ideas, money. And don't let anybody ever tell you there's anything wrong with wanting to earn a good wage. And I'll assure you that computer science and related subjects have the potential to earn you a fantastic wage in the future, and to give you a career that you can really believe in and enjoy. Now, this graph is taken from a third-party website. I'm not personally condoning it, I promise you, but it shows you the growth over the last 15 years or so of salaries in IT and computer science related jobs. So you can see growth, you can see a pretty steady increase since around about the year 2008. And one of the reasons for this growth, and one of the reasons that it started around about then, was automation. So the 2008 financial crisis was a terrible time for many people, but for computer scientists and IT workers, it was the beginning of a period of extreme growth in terms of jobs, opportunities, and salaries, because people wanted their companies to be able to do more with less people, sadly, maybe freeing them up to work in other areas or to pursue other aspects of their lives. But people want software and systems, and maybe even in the future, robots, automated machines that can do things that today we don't let them do, like driving, taxis, buses, and so on. But these things are coming in the future, and the not too distant future. But there were stories recently of automated supermarkets where the shelves are replenished by robots. Warehouses already use automated robotic systems that are driven by computer science, by programmers who write code to make these devices do what they're supposed to do. Now, why should you study computer science? Well, if what I've just said hasn't kind of given you a feeling of, it's interesting, there's potential here, I'll invite you, maybe now, maybe after you finish watching this, to just close your eyes and imagine how you might be able to make the world better, or at least different, hopefully better. Imagine a piece of software, an idea, a game, an online application, anything you can think of that uses IT. And with computer science, studying at the University of Bradford, you could make this a reality. You could make it something that exists out there in the real world, and other people would use and maybe benefit from and enjoy on a day-to-day basis. Now, in terms of making sure we can get this kind of message, this idea, this wonderful potential future out there for as many people as possible, we've worked really hard at Bradford to make our undergraduate computer science degree courses as open and as accessible as possible. So we don't, unlike many of our competitors, require you to have taken computer science or IT related subjects before you come and study here. Of course, it would help if you do. It would get you off to a really strong start. But for those of you who have never studied it before, we can get you there. We can take you there. We can teach you what you need to know, and we don't assume any knowledge. We start from first principles, from foundations, right at the start of our first semester. Now, we have 3 undergraduate courses: computer science for cybersecurity, and software engineering, all built around the same kind of backbone, but offering different options, different specializations, of course, as the names will tell you, and different degrees with different career paths potentially at the end. But there's a great degree of overlap in terms of some of the subjects you'll study and the careers you can go to, because no matter which course you study, you will be an accredited IT professional, and you will be, or you'll have studied an accredited course, and you can go and work pretty much anywhere that these fundamental skills can be applied. Now, just a little bit about our courses, just a taste, and we'd love to hear from you in the future and tell you a bit more. We have a common first year across all those courses, so you don't need to worry too much about which one you pick, you know, locking yourself into a future that maybe you don't want. You have a whole year to decide, because you can switch quite freely between those courses. And we have opportunities for you to work on real-world projects with industrial partners, both inside and outside the university, in the second year and the final year, in project-based modules. The final year project in the final year, obviously, and a group-based project with good support and supervision from staff here within the second year. Now, in terms of where our students go on placements and go on to work afterwards, we have a huge variety of destinations. People going to do placements and work for Microsoft, for Amazon, Morrison's in the IT department, not putting tins of beans on the shelves. But you can see here a huge diversity of companies, because these skills and this subject are so applicable across the board. Now, there are lots of other things you can do at Bradford as well. You can take part in our BCS, the British Computer Society student chapter, the first one in the world, thanks to our students. We have an ACM student chapter as well, and there's lots of other things that you can engage with and take part in. Hackathons, gameathons, trips, so placement opportunities, internships, and much, much more. Now, I could talk all day about this. I've already spoken for far too long, but we'd love to hear from you. Okay, if there's anything else you want to know, anything about our courses, our staff, our subjects, or what your life might be like at the University of Bradford, get in touch with us. Call us, go on our website. I'm certain you can contact us on Twitter and maybe even Facebook, if that's still a thing when you watch this. We want to hear from you. We want to give you the information you need. I hope that's been useful for you, and I'll keep my fingers crossed to see you at Bradford sometime in the future.